It's the Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling Podcast. My name is Josh, and with me as always, I can smell what he's cooking. It's buffalo chicken dip. Josh, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, people? Peeps, what's going on, everyone?
Big show today. Big show.
Big show today.
Lots to talk about. Lots in the world of wrestling going on here. It's crazy, right?
Well, you know, it used to be there was like Royal Rumble. And the road to WrestleMania was Royal Rumble, and that was it. But now we've got Super Showdown, we've got Elimination Chamber. There's all these literally twists and turns heading to WrestleMania. So we really don't have a clue of what the main event could be.
Well, do you think that dilutes the impact of WrestleMania then? Because you, instead of just going, he's going to WrestleMania, he won the Royal Rumble after Super Showdown. And then Elimination Chamber, and then he's going to WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Do you miss that there's no direct conduit to WrestleMania?
Well, this still is, because whoever wins the Royal Rumble automatically goes to WrestleMania.
Well, sure, but
so they won't change. But I guess I'm focusing more on the challenger story rather than the champions.
Okay,
because generally it's WrestleMania is a time for revolution. There you go, AEW.
Nice.
You owe me $5. All right, but no pun intended. There is this sort of revolution at WrestleMania where it pushes the industry forward, right? And it's going to take as far as the next level and put someone over, and that's where it's like we need to see the challenger story outshine the champion story just a bit. I would say in most cases, there's always story. Again, I'm just sort of thinking like a Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, where really we needed to see Shawn Michaels become the champion. We needed to see his story more than we needed to see Bret's at that time.
So do you think the extension of adding the additional pay-per-views gives it more time to ruminate?
Well, yeah, because the challenger doesn't change. The champion might, but that's the thing. Is we have Super. Let's get right down to it. Super Showdown. Do you think Bill Goldberg is going to beat The Fiend for the title?
I want to say no, because, traditional wrestling logic, I think would dictate that you don't put your big championship title on a part-timer. But nowadays, I'm almost split, because normally I would say, no, you can't give Bill Goldberg the championship because he's not going to be around to defend it. But now that we're living in the Brock Lesnar era, it could go either way. He might get it. I'd like to think, though, from a story standpoint, that if they're really trying to push The Fiend for who he is on this is his first run, right? And you're really trying to establish him, you don't want to peter it out. I think that he might even still blow past Bill Goldberg. And I almost imagine that eventually it's going to be Roman Reigns versus The Fiend at WrestleMania, and that's going to be their big push, their big attempt to put Roman Reigns over. I'm going to say that he's still going to beat Bill Goldberg.
Well, that's the thing, is like, on one hand, people kind of say, well, will Vince do the whole Roman Reigns Goldberg at WrestleMania and put Roman Reigns over that way? My assumption is, I have to believe that we're going to see like a no contest, unfortunately, at Super Showdown. I feel like The Fiend's going to leave without the title. It's to give Bill Goldberg, as far as the streak at this point, The Fiend is undefeated, essentially. Again, there was the referee stoppage, but generally speaking, The Fiend should be considered as undefeated. You're going to give it to Goldberg, who's a part-timer. It just doesn't make sense to me. I would rather just see, as far as The Fiend, actually cleanly beat Bill Goldberg. I think that would be just awesome. A spear hits the turnbuckle out of nowhere, mandible claw, and we actually get a clean victory from The Fiend over Goldberg. I mean, what are they going to do with Goldberg at WrestleMania? And I guess they could have him as champion in as far as Roman Reigns versus Goldberg, but you got the spear versus spear deal. But again, to me, I think I'd rather see Roman Reigns versus The Fiend. Again, I think they're sort of the guard right now. I think that they're the ones that should be put over. Not to say Bill Goldberg doesn't have a place at WrestleMania. It should be more on the peripheral, maybe a side match, a la something with like Dolph Ziggler, something along those lines, but maybe not in the main event itself. But that is my concern, is like just to have a Roman Reigns versus Bill Goldberg match, which I think people don't want to see. But I think people it seems a little more enticing when you got The Fiend versus Roman Reigns. So if anything, if Bill Goldberg, which I don't know, I don't know that, I don't think he maybe has an ego, he may actually put Bray Wyatt over cleanly.
I think that's what's going to happen.
As we saw with, why not? Like, he's got one of the best records ever. I think fans would love it. That would be like, people like, whoa, that's actually pretty cool to see that happen. So
it's not going to hurt Bill Goldberg. You know what I mean?
Well, right. That's the direction they should go. And Bill Goldberg, obviously he's he doesn't have, I don't think, very many world title runs in him anymore.
Sure.
And at some point, you have to realize you got to let the other, the I don't want to say the younger guard, but the current guard, you got to let him take over.
Yeah.
You got to let him do the thing. But I think that Goldberg has a place at WrestleMania. I just don't want him in the main event. For Super Showdown, sure, it's fine. But again, I hope we go with a clean victory here. The Fiend over Bill Goldberg. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see probably Brock Lesnar over Ricochet as well. I can't imagine Ricochet would actually beat Brock Lesnar.
No, yeah.
I mean,
I think that if Brock Lesnar feels like really working that night, if his heart's in it that night, we could get a really good show. But yeah, Ricochet's not walking away with the title.
Well, and we typically, and I know that they've mentioned this before as far as the commentary, but Brock Lesnar has great matches, I think, with the little guys, so to speak.
Yeah.
Watch AJ Styles, watch Finn Balor, watch Daniel Bryan. Kofi Kingston, actually the first one, as far as in Japan, was pretty good as New Day, but obviously the second was nothing to be, it was nothing to brag about
we
there.
Don't talk about that.
Right, but generally speaking, Brock Lesnar with the little guys puts on a good show, and people forget he might be part-time. He is a maximum payment, minimum effort kind of guy, but at the end of the day, he is a good wrestler. He knows how to put on a good work. He knows how to put on a good fight and a good match. And he knows how to entertain people. When he shows up, he does show up. He does his thing. So again, I think we could see a good match there, but yeah, Brock Lesnar, I think, is just going to crush right through it. Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. I've said this before. I think Brock Lesnar is going to retain. I could see Drew McIntyre winning SummerSlam or something, but what are your thoughts there?
You know, we've reached a point now with Brock Lesnar where even just going head to head with Brock Lesnar is enough of a rub to propel your career. You know what I mean? Like Ricochet's going to get that rub. Drew McIntyre is going to get the rub. But none of these guys are going to take him down. They've built up this myth of Brock Lesnar. I honestly think Vince has no idea where it's going. I feel like WWE is just, the train car is just, they just keep it rolling. They don't know where the track goes.
Well, they flattened it. The thing is, last WrestleMania, they flattened it out with Seth Rollins having the back-to-back victories, basically. Yeah. To me, that actually took the wind out of Brock Lesnar's sails.
You think it really knocked him down? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They initially did with Bill Goldberg, too. With the Survivor Series match, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. It was like a minute and a half match. Initially, it did take as far as the wins out of my sails. But Paul Heyman had a great promo. He said, listen, we honestly, we fucked up. We thought he was a relic. We took him easier. Brock Lesnar wasn't working out. He got a good shot in and he beat him. Yeah. But then they had Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg again at WrestleMania, and they told the story sort of how Brock Lesnar was able to crush him. So it was one of those things where you felt like, oh, Brock Lesnar slipped on a banana peel. So they made it work.
Yeah.
But the whole Seth Rollins thing, again, it was how they booked the match. I mentioned this before. WrestleMania last year when Seth Rollins won, it should have been like 20 curb stomps. Like seriously, just 20 curb stomps.
Wasn't enough.
And the fans are like 15. And then the ref goes down 1, 2, oh God! And so you see the desperation on Seth Rollins, and he's shaking. He's trying to get the crowd going. Come on, let's do it! Let's do it! Burn it down! Burn it down!
Right? Yeah.
19, 1, 2. Oh my God!
When will this end?
Right, and after 20, Brock Lesnar finally is, and one that finally, when fans get that would have put it over. People have been like, Seth Rollins barely got through. Brock Lesnar is still the beast, and it took that much to put him down.
Yeah.
That's what they missed out on. And when Seth Rollins, like, he went in like it was like Shawn Michaels taking on the $1 Million Corporation on Superstar Saturday morning, like it was nothing, like it was the waltz. Just like come in, super kick, and got my victory, and here I am. That's kind of what I felt like they did with Seth Rollins, but that they missed that golden opportunity there. But I think we're going to see Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, obviously at WrestleMania, but I think we're going to see, unfortunately, Brock Lesnar retain if they want to continue to keep this motif of Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I was saying, I think last year I was expecting, Drew McIntyre. I felt like it was his time, and now they're finally doing it.
So the other thing too to consider here, so we got Roman Reigns, Baron Corbin in a steel cage match. What was interesting, there was after the dark match after SmackDown, and then 205 is, of course, recorded, but then also live right after SmackDown as well on the WWE Network. I guess the dark match after 205 was The Fiend taking on Baron Corbin in a squash match. So here's the thing: Baron Corbin, Roman Reigns. I guess we're going to see probably Roman Reigns just blow through Baron Corbin. I guess my question then from there is, where does that leave Baron Corbin then for WrestleMania? There were some talks about John Cena taking on Elias.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Like,
it doesn't.
Elias is face right now, and I don't like how they keep having him going back and forth between face and heel. The fans like him. Keep him as face or as an anti-hero. Quit making him heel. Like, he hasn't run his course. People want to cheer him. They like him,
right?
And he gets his quarter. So keep him on, let him do his thing, let the fans cheer for him. But just to have him go heel for one night for John Cena to squash him, nah. But I think a John Cena Baron Corbin match, that could be something. That could be kind of fun.
Is Corbin enough for someone like John Cena coming back?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, he's been on Fox long enough.
No.
Like, here's the thing. Fox is a huge deal. I mean, there are so many eyes on that show. Fox is non-cable. So many more people know about Baron Corbin, the King. Your mother was talking about the King guy.
My mom,
she's a Fairweather fan, right?
Well, it's funny. My mom was, I was telling, whenever there's a pay-per-view, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be watching Royal Rumble. My mom asked me, she said, is the big dog going to be there?
Right. See?
Like, yes, Mom. Yes, Mom.
And she's mentioned the King, too. So she's like, and that's the thing. I've had a buddy talk about, as far as Baron Corbin before, who's not a fan of wrestling. But again, he gets off work, goes home, flips on the channel, right there. It's perfect time, 7 to 9, Friday night. What else you got to do? And you watch some awesome SmackDown. And so I think that people, that's the thing. It's like, there's so many more people watching this as non-cable. You don't have to have a cable package to watch this. And then you got, just as far as Fox, how giant that network is, and as far as the connections they have and the advertising they get and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that Baron Corbin is certainly known. Undertaker, AJ Styles, what we're hearing as well too. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, sounds good. Go with it.
It's gonna, it's one of those words. It's excellent to see. What I kind of hope would happen would be, so kind of have AJ Styles maybe make the challenge here, and him and the club come out every Monday night and make the challenge, and never comes out. Maybe some lights or something, and then at WrestleMania, they come out to the ring. And it's like, all right, you gonna come out or not, or what? All of a sudden, hey, and he comes out as American Badass.
Oh my gosh!
What do you think?
You know what? I never really cared for an American Badass, but you know what? Yeah, that would actually be pretty awesome.
Comes out, does and wrestles a match. AJ Styles wins, and then just they act like it never happened.
Yeah,
because sometimes WrestleMania is non-canon. Right. Like when John Cena went heel last year as the Doctor's Thugonomics, right? It was only for one night, but fun. But yeah, it wasn't like, so there you go. So I don't know. That's one way they could go about it. The other thing too is, like, you could have, as far as Undertaker versus AJ Styles, the club interferes, and maybe Kane then comes out and helps him out. I could see that halfway through the match. All of a sudden you hear the organ music, the fire. Right. Kane walks down and helps him clean house, and
well, they reintroduced Kane recently, so you never know.
Suffice to say, it is kind of cool to hear that the Undertaker is going to be involved at WrestleMania. Again, I'm selfish. I'm biased. He is my favorite wrestler of all time. When all the other kids in the neighborhood would love Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, I'm talking about the Undertaker. I was like, no, man, the Undertaker's where it's at. He didn't have as many world titles then, or he didn't have all the glamour and glitz they had, but man, he was always my favorite. And so to get another year of him wrestling is pretty awesome. And I have to believe, because at this point, they've shown that WWE can obviously do a WrestleMania without him, but he's coming back, and my assumption is that he wants to be back, and that's great news for wrestling fans and himself as well too.
Well, like his what was his last match? Extreme Rules? He looked okay. He was doing all right. I mean, I realized he wasn't doing all the heavy lifting because it was a tag. Yeah. Okay, like the guy still got it in him. Like, I remember a few podcasts ago, I was just saying maybe it's time to throw it in and stuff. But he's kind of like Ozzy Osbourne in a way, where like he could just every time you think he's going to throw it in, he could just keep going a little longer. Yeah. Or I guess Terry Funk is a more apropos comparison, where he just keeps coming back. Like,
well, especially Terry Funk. I mean, Terry Funk is like wrestling every darn day. It seems like, and Undertaker's once a year for WrestleMania. Right. So it's like, and
actually, to his credit, the Undertaker has never said he's retired. Right. So it's not like Terry Funk where he keeps, quote, retiring.
Well, and people are basing it off WrestleMania 33 when it seemed like he broke character. He went out and kissed his wife. Right. He left his jacket and his hat in the ring and whatnot. That wasn't necessarily to symbolize that he retired. You think about this, John Cena and AJ Styles, they had a SummerSlam match where AJ Styles beat John Cena cleanly. Yeah, and up until that point, that was like kind of never heard of. Maybe a CM Punk, but again, when AJ Styles actually beat John Cena cleanly, and it was a great match, by the way. John Cena, as far as took off his armband and threw it in the ring, and what they're indicating is that a part of their self has been left in that match. That match took a part of their self away, and that person has their utmost respect. But that's the thing. I think kind of people sort of saw, the Undertaker may have retired. Well, he never did say that. And they never did mention that. And nowadays we see people that are Hall of Famers, they continue to wrestle. It used to be once you're in the Hall of Fame, you're done. You're retired.
Yeah.
We've seen like Kurt Angle wrestled a full couple years after that, Ric Flair has wrestled. Hulk Hogan's wrestled, obviously not in WWE since they've talked about making some returns. Speaking of Hulk Hogan, returned SmackDown to an indifferent crowd, I might say.
It was kind of an indifferent promo, for at least on Hogan's part.
Well, I think they missed a golden opportunity there. If Hogan... I think the biggest things he's done is not really had a good apology for what he's done, for one. And two, I don't think he's put over enough people. I really don't. And I think this could have been an opportunity where they had, as far as Bray Wyatt at the Funhouse, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, the lights flicker in the background and the Fiend shows up. It's kind of simulcast while, Bray Wyatt is there as well, too.
There you go.
And have the Fiend there and sort of just do a mandible claw on Hogan. And then you actually have Hogan's picture on the Funhouse wall.
There you go.
And guess what? Hogan, you didn't actually have to put anyone over. You didn't lose a match. You got attacked from behind, but it helps out Bray, as far as Bray Wyatt and the Fiend, that whole, as far as character.
Well, they had who was it? Mick Foley. They did that to Mick Foley. They did that to Jerry Lawler.
Right. Exactly.
Just,
so I think this is an opportunity where, that, again, you could give something back to the wrestling fans and then maybe actually apologize for being a jerk. Again, that's why I think you get in a different crowd. That's why I was actually somewhat surprised when Hogan came out at WrestleMania last year, and he actually did get, in my opinion, a miniature pop. It was small, but it was a nice size pop.
Yeah.
Maybe they had, as far as they found some Hulkamaniacs, and they just put the microphones all by not by all 9 of them. I don't know. It's a sad thing to say because, again, it's like I mentioned before, I was always an Undertaker fan, but Hulk Hogan was a part of my childhood, and to kind of see where this is coming. And again, I think that if he had a sincere apology, and I think if he's actually putting people over rather than just sort of broadcasting, hey, I'm Hulk Hogan, hey, what's up, brother, and all this. Again, it's just like, I feel like you're kind of just washing over something that needs to be addressed. And two, you're not doing your job. You're not putting people over.
Yeah, we
don't need you for ratings. It
was pretty lame, and like if you'll remember, like the way they basically reintroduced Hogan after the scandal was after the death of Mean Gene. And in their defense, the promo they put together was very respectful, and Hogan's appearance was very respectful. He was just talking from the heart about his friend that he had lost. So I'm not going to put that part down, but the way they kind of snuck him back in, if you were very cynical, you could say that they're sneaking him back in under the blanket of Mean Gene's death, And then after that, it was just like everything's all right, everything's hunky dory, everything's swept under the rug, and it's not enough. And then you hear about like Hogan basically giving the locker room an apology, basically apologizing for being caught.
Right. And that's where it's at, because to me it's like, yes, he should have been snuck back in because he was the original Babe Ruth of wrestling. Those types of things have to be preserved. I get that. But it's got to be accompanied by an actual sincere apology. And if you're not really sincere and if you don't really want to apologize about it, that says a lot about you as a person. Yeah. And that actually, maybe you shouldn't be as far as kind of in the limelight you are. Again, it's just kind of my personal thing with that. But I think that's where a lot of people are coming from. They're sort of stuck on. There was never that apology. The apology offer was like a rush job. It was like, okay, we're good now. All right, break. All right. It's just, that's not how it works.
Well, that's the thing. I think definitely all the blame needs to go on Hogan, but there needs to also be a little bit of like complicity with WWE, essentially platforming Hogan. In their defense, they did drop him for a little while.
Right.
But really, like, the right thing to do would have been to really hold his feet to the fire and be like, hey, man, this, you're representing us. You can't be doing this. You need to make a proper apology. Do something that really shows that you actually, show us that this isn't your character, because this is something awful for us, and it's just the right thing to do.
Right.
But of course, WWE, they're going to chase every single freaking nickel every single time, and that is unfortunate, because WWE is allowing Hogan to still have this lucrative career, to still make appearances and be in the limelight and get the adoration of these fans that don't know any better. They're enabling him, and they need to be recognized as fucking up too.
Well, it sets the wrong message too. At any level, it sets the wrong message. But yeah, in any case, I guess back to Super Showdown, we will see him. I guess somehow at Super Showdown, maybe interfering in the match, maybe helping Goldberg out with the win or something. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
So we'll see. But Elimination Chamber, again, we'd mentioned before, it used to be sort of Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, but now we've got the Elimination Chamber, obviously, with Super Showdown, and really there's no telling what's going to happen. What's kind of interesting as a wrestling fan, it used to be you could kind of map out Once the Undertaker got their match, you kind of map out the rest of WrestleMania. Now you can't. I think it's still kind of cool because, again, you got to see that challenger story now still from WrestleMania or from Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. But there are a lot of twists and turns, and it makes it interesting. So, yeah, there's really no telling what they'll do. They'll have a men's Elimination Chamber match and a women's Elimination Chamber match. At this point, I mean, you've got sort of Bayley, and you got Naomi and you got Carmella sort of playing hot potato right now with the main event spot. I would love to see Naomi go on to WrestleMania. And maybe that's what needs to happen, is that she loses at Super Showdown. Naomi loses at Super Showdown, then wins the Elimination Chamber, and then goes on to WrestleMania to take on Bayley. So, I don't know. I think that's probably the direction I would go. Some might want to go maybe more the Lacey Evans route. I don't know. I just don't think Lacey Evans has the it factor just yet. I don't know that she could be.
No, yeah.
I think she sounds like a great person. I don't know her personally, but, as far as her work that she does outside of the ring, her work as a mother, and she is a good worker.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy her promos and all that. Again, I think that they went a bit too quickly with her from going from heel to face. But generally speaking, I do overall enjoy Lacey Evans. I just don't know if she has that it factor quite yet, or she at least is. I think she's fine, maybe is kind of the mid-carders, or maybe sort of flirting with the main eventers, but I don't know if she is ready yet to be the head of the SmackDown women's division.
She needs more time. She's got it in her, that's for sure, but I feel like because of her gimmick and the way she turned and things, it hasn't been quite the smooth transition yet enough to get her to where she needs to be. She'll get there. Give it some time. I mean, besides, right now, we got plenty of other main eventers in the spotlight right now. You know what I mean? Her time will come.
Well, yeah, especially we often forget we have 6 world championships in just WWE alone. 6 world championships. And again, we are to assume the NXT titles, at least the NXT women's and the NXT, as far as men's championships, they are considered, they consider NXT the main roster.
Right.
Although you kind of maybe hear this sort of like, I don't know if WWE's actually ever acknowledged it, but when Tommaso Ciampa comes out and says we are the main roster, and you have people like Charlotte Flair showing up on your brand, that does kind of make you more of a main roster. So
it's true.
So again, we have 6 world championships, so a lot to go there. Yeah, no, that's the thing, is WrestleMania is going to be like also Night of Champions as well too. There's so many titles. There's so many titles, and they got to be included at some point, right? Like, that's the thing. So we'll see. In fact, NXT Takeover is tonight, and here's what I'm thinking. I think Ciampa's going to go over. All right, so I think we're going to see a new NXT champion. I think Rhea Ripley will retain over Bianca Belair. I think that we'll see Undisputed Era retain. And then I actually think Broserweights. I think the Broserweights were they could actually get the title, but I actually think Undisputed is going to win. They're going to retain their title. So we'll see. We'll see what do we got tonight. Keith Lee should probably walk out with his title, I would assume. But NXT TakeOver Portland on Sunday night. I think it's a good move. It's just too much to watch it on Saturday night. It's too much to watch on Saturday night because I'm always busy. I'm a real popular guy. You have to understand. I'm always so busy. Always so busy. I barely have time for this podcast, but I carve some time out my day.
Well, you flew in on your Learjet and then came straight here.
Well, let's be honest. It was an Uber pool, but it was all good. It was all good. So actually, it wasn't even Uber pool. It was public transportation.
The original Uber pool.
Yeah, right. But hey, it's eco-friendly. Got me where I'm going. So, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. So NXT TakeOver Portland, again, that is something that is going to factor into WrestleMania, perhaps the Elimination Chamber. There is going to be there will be another takeover, so we'll see that around WrestleMania. But yeah, again, I think it's going to be a great show. I love how it's on Sunday nights. Again, I think people they have a little more availability, and we're used to watching pay-per-views on Sunday nights. So so kudos. So hopefully it's a new thing they keep doing. But again, you have to ask the question: if NXT is the main roster, when are they going to start having tri-branded pay-per-views? Right? It doesn't make sense for Raw and SmackDown to have their shared pay-per-view and then NXT to have a takeover. That's the thing. It's like, so, I know they have a lot of talent, but those are sort of the things they have to figure out, maybe as brands. They want to make them as different brands, but they also want to adhere to the same rules. Well, is NXT main roster, or is it developmental? Or is it better?
That's the thing. The way they're crossing over now, they're really selling it as equals.
Well, the thing is that the fact that NXT gets their own pay-per-view and Raw and SmackDown have to team up, that to me says NXT is the A show.
That's interesting because remember when they had the separate pay-per-views, it was like Backlash or Backspace.
It was
or
like
whatever.
30 pay-per-view. As a wrestling fan, I loved it. It was like a pay-per-view every other weekend. But it was,
But ticket sales and attendance suffered. So when it was separate from Raw and SmackDown. But what's interesting is that apparently NXT, the way NXT works, they're able to actually maintain their own thing. separately, whereas SmackDown, let's say, for example, wasn't able to at that time.
Right.
I mean, obviously things have changed now. SmackDown's a flagship now and all that.
Yeah.
But at the time, think back. So that is really telling. But at the same time, they want to. They realize they still do need to keep growing NXT.
Right.
In terms of connecting with the casual audience. Like we were talking about, like Joe Sixpack, and just the average Joe just flipping through channels catches.
They're not getting the younger audience like AEW is.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So
well, they're getting the young. AEW is like a whole, like I'd almost argue it's like there is overlap, but I'd argue that that's a whole different, almost a different league.
They kind of look for the diehard fans. I mean, that's the thing. Anytime you watch an AEW show, the fans are so diehard. And again, they're not just in the Impact Zone. They're not just at the NXT arena. They're traveling. They're in like Laredo, Texas. They're in like, as far as Iowa. They're in like, as far as Chicago. Revolution's coming up. But yeah, so I mean, that's the thing is the crowds have been hot. But then you listen to like a WWE crowd, it's kind of like they're all sitting on their hands.
It's a little flat.
There are some moments, but I feel like it's like everyone's like, oh, this is the time we can go, this is awesome. This is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, it's an okay match. I wouldn't say it's awesome. I feel like we use that term too much, but I feel like AEW, the fans they're diehard. They're thirsty, and they're really the hardcore fans. And I think that's what AEW set out to do was like, WWE wants Mr. and Mrs. Walmart. They want the masses. That's sort of their direction. AEW is like, well, there's this whole other pocket of fans.
Yeah.
They got money.
Yeah.
They want to be entertained. They're wrestling fans. They're diehard. Let's go for them. And you see it in the crowds.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing. Like, my friend Eric, he's not a wrestling fan really, but apparently he caught AEW. He was at a bar like a few weeks ago, and he caught like AEW. And he doesn't watch wrestling. The only wrestling he would even know, because he's gotten stuck watching it with me, would be WWE stuff. So like he was talking, he ended up watching it, and he's like, those guys are brutal. They're crazy. And the thing is, the WWE fans who've never seen AEW don't know how wild it can get. So when you hear that this is awesome chants over like a concerto, and then you switch over to AEW and somebody's, like somebody's getting, 10 lashes or something, or doing like crazy beat the clock things.
Right.
They don't know what they're missing. So like it's the bar. Honestly, the bar has been set a little low.
Well,
these days.
Exactly. And actually, there's a rumored edict that was sent out to the NXT locker room about how they should be, as far as more forceful and take more impacts with their bumps and on each other. And I think the idea was that they wanted to, now that they're going head to head with AEW, they want to show that they're more impactful. So a lot of fans have called them out and said, hey, it seems like they're, are they just fighting for their spot? Or are they being told to do this? Because Raw and SmackDown, it doesn't seem like they're hitting each other as hard.
Interesting.
So again, I mean, it could be something there, but I mean, it's something. It is definitely when you have people that only know WWE and they go to see an independent show, they're just like, whoa, it's a whole other show. And AEW is essentially, it's a super independent show. Although they are now in their own federation, they have as far as continued storylines, but as far as their start is the independent circuit. You think about All In. It was like, all right, everyone all in. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Everyone bring your ball. Everyone bring your bat. Let's see what we got. We'll have a game here. But yeah, no. So Revolution's coming up. That's going to be an awesome pay-per-view. I'm really excited about that. There's a lot of great matches. I do think Jericho is going to retain over Moxley.
Yes.
Right. I actually think MJF will beat Cody Rhodes. I think that this is what they need to do. It's not going to hurt Cody Rhodes, and it's going to be like MJF is going to remind me of like Ric Flair when he kept beating Savage. And not only did he got to your wife, he then beat you in the ring, and then you had a rematch, and then Ric Flair beat you again, and the fans just like, oh, they want you to win. That's where I think they're going to go with this. I think that MJF's going to beat Cody Rhodes.
I could see that angle. I bet
Jake. Yeah, I think Jake Hager's he's going to probably knock Dustin Rhodes out. What do you think?
Oh yeah, you got to do that. Dustin's going to be willing to put over. I don't want to say Jake Hager's like the youngest, newest guy ever,
right.
But still put him over within the organization.
Yep.
I think that's what's going to happen. This is his first time wrestling in AEW. Like we've seen him in promos many times for a few weeks now. So you can't let him lose.
Right.
Either that or like.
I mean, he's an undefeated MMA fighter. He's a former world champion. He's done it all in WWE. He really has,
Yeah.
you know? And so that being said, like, this is a guy you got to curate. And I think, especially right now, he's got to go over. Yeah, I think overall, I think it's going to be a great pay-per-view. I think it's be awesome. AEW, we talked about how diehard the fans are. Chicago is going to be right along those lines. You know, I mentioned before, and I want to call myself out here. About a year ago, I talked about how Chicago fans were overrated and how and again, I was sort of focusing on kind of my experience at the Allstate Arena. Again, a WWE crowd. Well, you know, again, living in Chicago and whatnot, I've gotten more experience with independent wrestling and really seeing the Chicago fans out there. WWE crowd is a bit quieter. They sit on their hands, so to speak, as I mentioned before. I got to be honest, go to an independent show. Logan Square's got one this Friday, February 21st, Logan Square Auditorium. AEW will be there. They're going to have a great show. Go check it out. And I'm looking forward to it. And that crowd's going to be hot. And I guarantee the crowd at Revolution is going to be hot. So maybe it's just the WWE Chicago crowds that are so far behind, and it just feels like they're overrated.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd say that. I remember when you said that. It was like a dagger through the heart.
Yeah.
But I think it is just WWE. And, you know, like I said before, they've kind of lowered the bar in certain ways.
Well, we've had big things like WWE concerned. We've had big things happen in Chicago, like CM Punk, as far as Jericho's debut. Right. There's been big things that have happened in Chicago, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a wrestling city.
Yeah.
And again, I'm focusing more on the WWE side of this, but if you branch out from that, if you look at how well AEW has done, they always sell out in Chicago. They always sell in Chicago. Yeah. Chicago crowds are super hot. And then you think about all the independent shows I've been to. They've always been hot. And again, I think just Chicago is a wrestling city. You just have to look outside of WWE and you have to really look at the other federations. And it's hard to because we were sort of ingrained with WWE as a torchbearer. They are the ones. But, you know, it's a good style. It's a good brand, but it's not the only brand.
Oh, there's so many options now. It's so great.
Yeah, I mean, I think. What do you think we'll see? I guess there's the battle royal, right, for the tag belts. For jumping back to Revolution for the AEW tag belts with Kenny Omega and Hangman. There's a battle royal, right?
Yeah, there's going to be a battle royal. The winner will take those two on, or the winners will take those two on. It's interesting to see where this goes, just considering what the storyline is with Adam Page right now. I guess they're just going to keep it going, keep building it up of him just drinking and drinking and drinking. You know, we talked about this a little bit last week, but it is weird seeing wrestlers drinking or smoking sometimes. Like, remember when the Big Show was smoking? That was like a storyline briefly.
Oh, Sandman used to do that all the time. He'd come out to the ring smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer. It's like,
somehow it works with Sandman because he just looks like some guy they just got out of the bar. But when you see someone who's really built up and really toned, it's very strange to me to see that.
Yeah.
Like, no, we love you, Sandman.
But that's the thing. It's like it doesn't, doing that before a match in a physical competition, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, right. So I don't know. But that being said, I think it's gonna be a great pay-per-view. Make sure to check that out. What else is going on? XFL, right?
XFL is back again.
Did you watch it at all? Did you watch the first week last week?
I'm just not. I'm not a football guy. Like
Well, this is extreme football.
On a side note, for someone who's not a sports guy, like the only sporting thing I watch is WWE. I went to one baseball game in my life. Actually had a good time.
Was it a Cubs or a Sox game?
It was a Sox game.
Oh, yeah, right on.
Went into extra innings, 14 innings, and the Sox won it at the last. It was actually a really good time, but I'm just generally not a sports guy, so it's just not me. Like, they would have to change. Like, when I hear the word extreme, my mind is imagining, like, something really, like, futuristic out of a movie. Like, oh, no, like maybe the football has, like, a clock on it, and there's a timer, it's going to explode. Kind of, it's like extreme football league. And then, of course, I turn it on, and it's just like, it's like things like, there's no more timeouts than, this and, things like that. So, yeah, it's just it's not my bag. But
well, there's some things they tried with it. Like, I know I haven't seen the actual original, the newer season, but like the original season, some 20 years ago, the coin toss was they launched a football down the field, and the first member of either team, whoever got it, that's what determined possession.
Interesting.
So they did things like that, but then they started involving like storylines, like the cheerleaders and whatnot, and it got really weird. So that's the thing is, like, if they actually stick to football, I think they have a shot here. Now, again, Vince McMahon, he wants to figure this out. He doesn't want this to be sort of that monkey on his back. He wants to get this off, and I think that he's spent some time. He's got some more money involved with this. Fox is a bigger deal than it was 20 years ago. I think there's enough football fans. If they make it like a legitimate sport, people will watch this in the off season to NFL, and then you have football year round.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of perfect. So, and maybe at some point, because really the NFL is really two different federations. There was American Football League and the National Football League. They eventually combined to create the NFL. Maybe we have, and that's where you have really the Super Bowl. So you have like the AFC is one company, so to speak, and the NFC is the other. They're taking on each other. But now they're all merged under NFL and whatnot. Well, you could eventually see that with NFL and the XFL. Maybe have a Super Bowl.
Oh, hey.
So there you go. But again, this is actually it's a great opportunity for a lot of athletes. For whatever reason, if NFL didn't work out for them, the Canadian Football League, they got the XFL. So I think there is a good chance it could survive, especially when fans want football. They're diehard football fans like we are wrestling. We watch wrestling year round.
Right.
Who's to say there's not plenty of people that would love to watch football year round? So we'll definitely see. But that said, it'll be interesting. It's only 2 weeks into it. It sounds like it had a pretty kind of solid, I guess, viewer turnout, so to speak. I didn't hear anything about it bombing or anything.
Yeah,
but
I guess they're doing okay.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like Vince is maybe taking this more seriously than the last time, I feel.
Well, and I absolutely.
We're even hearing reports that he's stepping away from WWE programming right now.
Well, I think he needs to at some point. We had an episode where we talked about what would happen if Vince McMahon passed away, which would be such a dark day in wrestling. Whether you respect Vince McMahon, you love him or hate him, he's Vince McMahon. He's Vince McMahon, and because of him and because of what he's done to wrestling, in some ways, we say WB has lowered the bar, but they've also risen the bar. They've raised the bar quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and just to make as far as wrestling relevant, and that's important because that's something then the next generation will be able to enjoy. Our grandkids will be able to enjoy at some point, and so on and so forth. That's why wrestling keeps getting passed down from generation to generation. Is things like WWE to keep it relevant, And then it's also on top of that, it's the workers and all the different types of as far as programs. You think about Impact or Ring of Honor. You think that we have all these different federations. We've got AEW, talked about Logan Square Auditorium this Friday night. AEW, and we've got New Japan. There's federations all over the world. It's obviously a big deal. So suffice to say, I think wrestling's gonna be around for a long time. It ain't going nowhere. So that said, Vince McMahon, I think stepping aside is a good thing because if he were to pass, at some point it would be Triple H and Stephanie taking over. I think Stephanie would take over more of the corporate administration type of stuff, and then Triple H would actually take over the wrestling portion is what I would assume to happen.
Sure.
Shane McMahon has sort of been on the side. I don't know what exactly he would do. He'd sort of stepped away and he was successful in his own ventures. So my assumption is he would still be brought on as a consultant of some sorts, but Triple H and Stephanie would be running the show. Well, this is the chance to get that worked out before. So if I'm Vince McMahon and I have the same thought where I want to keep this going for generations to come, maybe I do step aside. Maybe I let my son-in-law and my daughter take over. If they're going to eventually, which we all know them to be, this is an opportunity while I'm still here and I can help mentor them.
Well, that's the thing, and we've heard it all before, from Vince himself and from Triple H. Vince is not going to step away until he can no longer physically do the job. In some ways, that's admirable, but in other ways, you're right. It would be better to, get Stephanie and everybody into the loop and get let them get a rolling start rather than having to one day just suddenly start doing it. You know what I mean? They need to start prepping. You're right, but I don't see Vince doing it. This guy this is his baby, and even though he is, like we were just talking, he's stepping away to deal with XFL, he's still never gonna fully leave.
Sure.
That no matter
final say,
creative. That no matter how busy with XFL Vince gets, he's always going to be having approval of champions and directions of things and stuff. He's just always going to be doing it. In fact, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he didn't pull like a Walt Disney or a Steve Jobs where he left like videos of future plans for the next 20 years. Like,
that's not alien. I mean, hey, why not?
Like, I could totally see like something like that existing.
And that's the thing too, is we have to consider who Vince McMahon is and what he's done for wrestling. And at the end of the day, it's like he sees things differently maybe than you and I do. He understands what it takes to keep wrestling going. And he's mentioned before, you have to treat the fans like they're children. And he meant that in the best. He meant that in the best way possible. And that's what you have to give your children what they need, not necessarily what they want. And the thing is, if you gave them what they want, we have a Hell in a Cell every on 205. We'd have a Hell in a Cell every night of the week, whether it's 205 or a house show. So that's the thing. Is like you have to draw a line. We also have to give them what they absolutely need, and that is entertainment in this situation. So I think that they do a good job in that for the most part. But there's so many things behind the scenes we don't see. There's the shareholders, Fox Network. I'm guaranteeing you, probably at higher levels than we even know, probably dictate who they want to see. And that's why we hear rumors of Bill Goldberg versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and we as fans are like, what? But again, WBE, they cater to the masses. and it's not necessarily for the wrestling fan. So to the masses, Bill Goldberg versus Roman Reigns would be a pretty big deal. And I think it'd be a big deal regardless of what type of wrestling fan you are. Just to be honest, like the spear versus spear, seeing Roman Reigns go over Goldberg, I would have to assume Roman Reigns would go over Goldberg.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That really sort of, it sets a tone. Again, it could be a fun match. It may not be, but I'd rather see Roman Reigns versus The Fiend for the title, to be honest, at WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
What else is going on? The Rock's daughter, Simone, fourth generation.
Yeah, how about that?
So
talk about pressure.
That is a lot of pressure. Triple H said it best in an interview. He's like, there's no advice I can give her that her mom and Rock haven't already given her. Like, I'm sure they've told her, like, the moment you decide to do this, it's gonna be a tailspin of marketing and news, media outlets and all that. I'm sure they're prepared, but again, that's something that you sort of expect, and she's sort of grown into this business. Obviously, being 4 generations, being as far as the Rock's daughter, they've been learning this for so long already. So that is pretty cool though to kind of see that lineage. So now, wish her the best. That'd be awesome. And no, it's Performance Center. They got Simone, Tito Ortiz. You hear Tito Ortiz? Is that the Performance Center? So that's kind of cool. So, but yeah, we're not exactly sure what her role will be, but it sounds like she is going to be a professional wrestler at the Performance Center. But there's a thing. A lot of people, they go into wrestling and they find out they prefer to be a referee, or they prefer to be a commentator, they prefer to be a trainer. So we'll see. And some just, like her dad, get into wrestling, become one of the best wrestlers of all time, and then decide to be a movie star. So hey, there's lots of ways you can go, and it's a good industry nonetheless. So anything else, Josh, you want to add?
That's about it, folks. Just enjoy the wild ride of like the wide world of wrestling. That like it's a feast that's coming up, guys.
Well, there's so much. I mean, where do you stop? There's Impact, there's NWA, there's Ring of Honor, and then you think about WWE. They've got as far as 5-6 hours worth, actually probably 7 hours of wrestling you can watch. But that's the thing, as a fan, we should never find ourselves complaining too much, because it's an a la carte service. You can kind of pick and choose what you want. Maybe you just watch 205. Maybe you just watch AEW. Maybe you just watch NXT UK. I happen to watch all of it, and I love it. And I love to go to the independent shows as well too. But it's interesting because I feel like we should never complain, especially nowadays with the internet. There's so much wrestling out there. You're going to find something. You're going to find something. My hope is that promoters, they tune into this and they try to create a product that is for everyone. That should be the goal. Yeah. There's something in it for everyone, which I would like to think most already do.
Well, that's what WWE is trying to do, right?
Well, in some ways.
But by trying to become a product for everyone, they're actually losing some of the fan base, which is interesting, where AEW is picking things up. It's just a thought.
Part of it's the creative, too. I feel like with WWE, you're watching carbon copies. I feel like every week it's like whatever show you're watching, there's going to be that type of tag match.
Yeah.
There's going to be that type of like challenge or so. It just seems like it's kind of regurgitated, and then the creative gets together and says, all right, here's our template. We're going to put this on all the shows this week.
Right.
And with AEW, it's easier to do because they have one show to worry about per week. And and maybe that's something to be said for WWE. Maybe they're spread too thin.
Well, that's the thing. I think that streamlined approach that AEW takes makes it all the more enjoyable. I mean, everything from just having one show and maybe the YouTube show on, AEW Dark.
Yeah.
You can watch that. And there actually is talk of bringing that onto TNT at some point, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, even then, it's still 2 shows versus like 9 for WWE. Everything from just having 1 or 2 shows maybe to having just one belt. There's the championship belt, and then there's the women's championship. You know what I mean? And then there's the men's tag and then the women's tag, and that's about it. Right. And you can get behind that more, and I feel like they've diluted things. You're right, they kind of have spread themselves a little too thin. They've diluted themselves a little bit and starting to see the troubles.
Well, and you got to take risks. And one thing we were talking about pre-show, which is interesting, it's actually kind of apropos for right now. We're talking about how Impact, they're making history. Tessa Blanchard as the world champion, and no one really cares and knows. And this is a big deal. She's going on to defend the title. It's interesting because you want to sort of wonder, okay, does this mean then that the men can challenge for the women title?
Right. Oh, there you go.
They actually had something. So a couple weeks ago in Impact, they were in Mexico, and Taya Valkyrie, who's been the longest knockouts, their women's champion, who's been the longest knockouts champion in history, well over a year, finally dropped the title to Jordan Grace. All right. What's interesting is I thought that why would you not have Taya Valkyrie versus Tessa Blanchard and actually unify those titles and truly make it intergender? So you make a title is a title is a title. But now you've got, again, sort of the situation where women can, challenge for the men's title, but then can, men challenge for the women's? The short answer is yes, actually, because Harvey Whippleman did it.
Oh, that's right.
He's a former women's champion. So speaking of breaking barriers, right? But it does actually, as far as bring up a question of so we are intergender or are we not? And maybe they have both divisions and you can still, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But the problem is no one's talking about it. And because honestly, no one can see Impact. It's on Axe TV.
Yeah.
You can go online and find it, but or get the TNA as far as Impact. I always until the day I die, I'm gonna always say TNA. It's Impact. There is the Impact Plus subscription package you can get.
Yeah.
It's like $70 a year, nothing too bad. But that's a good way to watch a show. But Impact consistently has great shows. They really do. I enjoy a lot of their workers, and I get to see a lot of their workers actually on the independent circuit. Ace Austin specifically, when I would watch him at Logan Square Auditorium during an AEW match, I was like, this guy's pretty good. He's always kind of a low carder, mid carder. I started tuning in to Impact. He's the X Division champion. He's a big deal. In fact, he's in a main event match with it's champion versus champion. It's going to be as far as Ace Austin taking on Tessa Blanchard. So he's a big deal in Impact. So again, this is one of those great things as a fan. Get out and watch as much wrestling as you can. You'll be surprised what you might see. You might on one federation you see this guy would be considered a quote unquote jobber, for lack of a better term, but then he's, as far as champion somewhere else. You see that across the board. So no, it's been great watching that, but I'm kind of bummed because again, Tessa Blanchard winning the title was a big deal. Winning the men's title was a big deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And historically, it should be a bigger deal, but they don't have the exposure, one. And two, there's kind of the black cloud around Tessa Blanchard still.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's a black eye. Based on, as far as things that she did say or didn't say, we don't know. It seems like there was a lot of people that came out and said some things about, about Tessa Blanchard. So we're led to believe that.
We haven't heard a whole lot lately, though. Huh.
Not lately, no. Not lately. But again, it's still, it's one of those things we as wrestling fans don't forget.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So again, I think for all those reasons, it's kind of something we're not really talking about. But that said, again, as wrestling fans, it's a smorgasbord of entertainment. Yeah, enjoy the wild ride. It's WrestleMania season. It's always a good time. Anything else, Josh? This time for real. Anything else, Josh, you wanted to add?
Keep it locked to Josh and Josh for all that wrestling goodness.
Yeah, subscribe. Hit us up in the hot box too, right? Josh Talk Wrestling, gmail.com. What else they need to do? Yeah,
we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. Just go out and find us.
That's right.
Tell your friends to subscribe. Have your dog subscribe. Have your mom subscribe. My mom, is the big dog there.
That's right, and she's a subscriber. So yeah, you guys all be cool with each other. Love each other. In the meantime, we'll talk to y'all soon.
Good night, everybody.